Hey guys, I hope you're doing well today. Today I am actually going to review a book, and it is a book that I just read, hence the name BookBabeBeauty. I chose the name BookBabeBeauty for my channel because I really love to read, and reading has been a really important hobby for me just because of some of the things that I've gone through in my past, and reading has always been a way for me to escape and feel like I'm a part of somebody else's world for a little while, and it's very therapeutic to me, so I love to read. My favorite genre is romance novels. I did not get started in the romance genre because of 50 Shades of Grey. I actually think that series is pretty trash. But I think what really kind of got me into the genre of romance novels was some Twilight. They do say that romance novels follow the same kind of themes as Twilight, the brooding man that's incapable of love and being infatuated with that plain girl. A mixture of Twilight and the first actual kind of smut novel that I got into was by Sylvia Day, and it was a series of books. I think it started off with Bared to You and Twined to You, and it was what sucked me into the romance world, and I just eat them up like candy. I love romance novels. It's like any girl who loves to watch a romantic movie or romantic comedy. You know, it's far-fetched, but it's a fun fantasy to live in. So the book that I'm reviewing today, it is by an author who I'd never heard of before this, and I had never read any of their books. I think I got it in a subscription box called the Bookworm Box, and that was also started by another author who I love, Colleen Hoover. So if you have not read any of her books, I highly recommend them. They are geared more towards the young adult age range. I really love her books, but I think I got this book from one of her book subscription boxes, so that's what I'm going to review today. I was pleasantly surprised. Normally I do a lot of research about a book before I invest my time in reading it, just because there's a certain type of book I like. When I do read romance novels, I do like to read them from a first-person point of view. I like to put myself in that person's shoes, so I feel like in a first-person point of view, when they're expressing how they feel, how things make them feel, you can kind of pick up on those feelings yourself. So I really prefer to stick with first-person point of view. And this one is, so I was pleasantly surprised, because sometimes if they're not, it can kind of turn me away a little bit, or I don't get as invested. I just don't feel that connection with the characters. But this one, I was immersed into the story, the way that this author was able to just describe everything and tell the story, and I could not put it down. I just wanted to give you a book recommendation in case you wanted one. You don't have to take my book recommendation, but you know, so I always love when people recommend a good book to me. I'm just going to be doing my makeup today. I'm not going to be going over the exact, techniques or anything. It's going to be kind of like a get ready with me, but also talking about a book. So if you are curious about any of the products that I'm using, I will list them in the description box below. I did in my last video. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps so much. I really appreciate it. Also, if you have any recommendations for books you want me to read and review, maybe you don't want to waste or invest time or money into a book, until you hear some reviews about it first. I would love any recommendations, or if there's a really good book that you've loved and you want to recommend to me and see, if I loved it too, then I can give you my feedback and let you know what I think about it. So if you have any recommendations, please leave a comment down below. I'm going to try and read a book every week, and that way I can give you guys kind of a consistent book recommendation every week. That's my goal. I may not be able to achieve that goal, but I'm going to try very hard. And today I am going to review The Long Shot. This book is by Kennedy Ryan, and I really love the cover, actually, because, with most romance novels, you have the attractive guy on the cover, and he is a very attractive guy, and, why wouldn't you want to read a smut novel about, a gorgeous guy on the cover? I didn't know anything about this book going into it. I didn't even read the summary. Anyway, this is The Long Shot, and it says it's a hoops novel, so sometimes it's not a series. It's not always a series of the same main characters that are in this book. Sometimes it's a spin-off of characters that had a very small role. That's what I think with this one, because this, had a conclusion that wasn't like really left open to interpretation. So I didn't do any research to see if that was the case, but that's just what I'm thinking. A lot of the actual series, romance series, they leave on a cliffhanger, and this one didn't. It wrapped it up, tied it up. I highly recommend this book. So the author, Kennedy Ryan, is actually a Rita Award winner. She won the Rita Award for this book specifically. It was well-deserved. I can completely understand why she won an award. Some of the things that she got into in the book are very heavy, and the way she went about explaining it in such a graceful way made it easier to read, but made you feel more connected, and made you feel more empathetic to the main character. A lot of times in romance novels, you will hear the main male and the main female be called the hero and the heroine. So if you hear me refer to those terms, that's what I'm talking about. It's the main male character and the main female character. But I will be giving you their names. So this book is 445 pages long, and it took me 2 days to read. I could not put it down. It was so incredibly good. And the times that I had to put it down, I didn't want to. I stayed up late reading it. I woke up early to read it. Any chance that I got, I read it. I highly recommend this book. So I need to stop talking so much and actually get into getting ready, because I do need to get that accomplished. I do have to forewarn you, this book delves heavily into themes and discussion of domestic violence and sexual assault, and specifically rape. If you are at all sensitive to those topics or subjects, then I'm just giving you this warning so that you can be aware, because sometimes those things are triggers for some people, and out of respect, I just want to be able to warn my viewers that maybe this book may not be a good recommendation for you if those topics bother you. Well, they should bother everybody, but to a personal degree. Because I didn't expect those topics when I started reading the book, it completely caught me off guard. So I just want to be sure that I'm warning you that these are, topics that are heavily discussed and mentioned in this book. I do have to say that aside from delving into such heavy topics, that this author has done it in such a graceful way. She does it with such poise she does it with such honesty, and she does it in a way that does not romanticize those topics. That is a very fine line. That's a very rocky path that some authors kind of, get into. If you don't do it in such a way, you can actually romanticize some of these heavy topics, and she doesn't at all. She just makes you feel completely immersed with the character. This is not like with books that, discuss BDSM, where, sometimes pain and pleasure are intermingled, but consensually. This is, completely separate from that. But I just had to give my warning. I do have to say though, Kennedy Ryan, girl, you got me in the feels with this book. I was not expecting it. Especially since, the genre is something that I read, but not necessarily the trope. And it's a sports romance, which I really haven't read a ton of those, but I've read enough to where they're all the same, and it's usually your cocky jock and a very plain girl who fall in love. They're all very similar. With any romantic novel or romance novel, there's always a similar theme. They fall in love so immediately, so intensely, and then there is a conflict or a misunderstanding, and they have to fight their way back to each other, or somehow, the conflict has to be resolved in the story. Usually in the sports romance novels, it's the jock just going back to his old ways. Either there's a misunderstanding with the female lead or the heroine that he's cheating on her because, one of his past groupies made it seem like he was. They all really follow the same kind of guideline, but this one didn't. Okay, I had to put on the rest of my foundation and concealer because it was kind of hard to talk while I was pounding my face. So the story starts out with two college seniors. The female lead character is a fiery young Cajun from Louisiana. Her name is Iris Dupree. And the male lead character, his name is August West, and he is an up-and-coming basketball star. He plays college basketball. They both end up at a bar one night. August West was there to just get a breath of fresh air before one of the biggest games of his life. He knew that this game was going to have very important scouts there, and he knew that this game, if he won it, would mean possibly the rest of his life for professional basketball. So he was just out to get a breath of fresh air away from all of his teammates who could distract him, away from the pressure of the coach, and he comes across Iris. She's at the bar. She's watching a basketball game on the TV in the bar. August West seems completely enthralled by Iris. When she seems to know basketball like the back of her hand, she's calling out the refs on the TV, shouting at them for bad calls and yelling at the players for bad plays. And he notices her quick wit, and he's just kind of enamored by her. And he didn't expect to be making conversation with anyone that night. He really was just trying to get out of his hotel room and enjoy some peace and quiet, but he couldn't help himself when he started making conversation with Iris. The last thing he wanted was to distract himself from the big game that he was about to be playing, but she kind of just sucked him in with conversation. Iris also wasn't planning to have conversation with anyone either. She was just trying to take a breather and have some time for herself. She had a lot of question about her future. and what she was going to do when she graduates, what kind of job she was going to be able to get. She just wanted to have, some time to herself. When August started talking to her, she actually knew who he was, but I think she was being kind of coy at first because, she knew that he was kind of a big shot, and, everybody knew who August West was. He was one of the most talented college basketball stars that was currently playing. And she kind of called him out on some of his game in past games, and he really kind of enjoyed that she was very quick-witted and bold and feisty. And it wasn't long after they got lost in conversation that time got away from him. He had to get back to the hotel room, but he didn't want the conversation to end. Neither did Iris, really. It seemed like, the more they talked, it seemed like they knew so much about each other in just such a short amount of time. He was going to take his shot, and he was going to make a move. She reluctantly turned him down because, as enamored by him as she was, not expecting, such a hotshot basketball player to be so deep and have so much depth to him when they were talking, have so many similarities in their backgrounds and such a connection. She knew that she could not let herself fall for the affections of August because she had a boyfriend. She knew that she was a loyal girl and she wasn't going to do anything that would possibly jeopardize her relationship. But quite frankly, the cards were stacked against them because August didn't know her boyfriend was also an up-and-coming basketball star. August could only hope from that experience that he would, by fate, meet her again somewhere. But that's where it was kind of left, and it wasn't until the big basketball game the next day that he realized who, in fact, Iris's boyfriend was. It was Golden Boy Caleb Bradley, and it was not only an up-and-coming basketball star just like him, it was his arch rival. Caleb, who was Iris's boyfriend, had quite the reputation for being a little egotistical, knowing how good he was, trying for the same success as August was, and that was to be a professional basketball player. August kind of took this as a challenge. He still wanted to get in Iris's ear. He wanted her to understand that this connection between them, it was undeniable. He was interested, and he wanted her to know he was interested. But unfortunately, Caleb, when he saw August talking to Iris, he made it a point to kind of interject himself into their conversation so that August couldn't have that alone time with her. Iris's dreams were in sports journalism, but unfortunately her dreams came to a halt when she realized that she was pregnant. It was by Golden Boy Caleb Bradley. It kind of filled her with a sense of dread because Caleb had kind of molded Iris into thinking that she would be his wife very soon, that she didn't need to work, and that he was going to provide for her, and she was just going to be kind of like his trophy wife, his arm candy. And Iris really had a lot of mixed feelings. She didn't know if she was actually in love with Caleb, but now she felt stuck. So any chances for her in August were null and void at this time. Throughout Iris's pregnancy, Caleb was very doting, and she had no choice but to let him dote on her. Even though she was questioning what she was going to do with the rest of her life, whether she loved Caleb, she was going to have to let him take care of her because she, was a college senior at the time. She was young. She didn't have a career yet. Her career was waiting for her after college. But for Caleb, this was great because it seemed like this was going to be a done deal. All the dreams he had of making Iris his wife were going to come true. And he envisioned this perfect family. He wanted to be the provider. He constantly assured Iris that she didn't need to worry about anything. He was going to take care of everything because now he was a professional basketball player. And so was August West. Her and August had left things the last time at the party after the basketball game that won them their future in professional basketball, and she hadn't heard from him since. Iris had basically succumbed to the fact that she was going to probably end up marrying Caleb. They were going to have their little family, but she still wasn't very thrilled about it. She felt like all of her dreams at independence were being crushed. And you will find out by reading the book how important that was to Iris, because she grew up with a mother who was not an independent woman. Her mother would jump from man to man just looking for somebody to take care of her, and Iris promised herself that she would never be anything like her mom. And she felt like she was just following in her mom's footsteps by not being cautious enough and allowing herself to get into this position where she had no other choice but to let a man take care of her. In the back of her mind, thought that maybe one day she would be able to pursue what she really wanted to do. But Caleb really didn't want her to have any part of that. He liked the fact that she relied on him so greatly. During her pregnancy, she had no choice but to rely on Caleb because she had some complications and she was put on bed rest. So she basically just had to move in with Caleb, play house, and for her, this was one step closer to her life and her future being decided for her and being ripped away from her. And she just became more and more apprehensive as time went on. Now, after having her baby, Iris became even more unsure about her relationship with Caleb, and she had pretty much resolved herself to the fact that she really didn't love Caleb. She had stayed with him for the sake of their child, but she knew that she wasn't happy, and if she really loved him, then, she would have felt differently about their situation. It wasn't until a year later that she had another encounter with August, and it was at that time that she realized it was for certain that her connection with him was undeniable. And she knew, her doubts about Caleb were true. She didn't love him. She didn't feel this connection with Caleb. But, how could she pursue anything with August because she had a child with Caleb? She, knew at that time she needed to figure out a way to call things off. Maybe they could peacefully share custody of the child, but she also was a little afraid because she knew how invested Caleb was in their relationship, and she was afraid to hurt him. She didn't really know how to go about it because he had been providing for her and her child. But that's when the story took a really dark turn. Along with Caleb suspecting things about Iris's feelings, he could sense that she was not as invested in the relationship as he was, and he became a warden, and Iris became somewhat of a prisoner. He controlled what Iris did. It got to the point where she was not only worried about the safety of herself, but she was worried about the safety of their daughter. And the last thing that Iris wanted to do was set a bad example for her daughter. But unfortunately, because of Caleb's controlling ways, Iris kind of lost contact with everybody from the outside world. She had lost contact with some of the closest people to her. And because of the fact that Iris lost contact with some of the closest people in her life, she just didn't know if there was any way out. Caleb started making it impossible for Iris to ever have any hope of leaving the situation. He blackmailed her. Caleb was going to make it seem like if she tried to leave, he would be able to keep their child and she would never get to see their child again. I know the whole time that I was reading the book, I just kept constantly rooting for Iris. I just felt, like I said before, the pain that she felt, the instances that she went through, the way that the author described everything that happened. It's just such a visceral feeling. I could really put myself in Iris's shoes and feel the immense desperation, depression, isolation, and hopelessness. I couldn't help but feel so strongly involved with Iris's character. And all I wanted the whole time was somebody to just rescue her. I wanted August to rescue her, and I wanted there to be a way for them to find each other again. I wanted there to be more instances where they would have a run-in and she would be able to tell him, but it seemed like every time that, they did happen upon each other, she was so terrified of Caleb and things getting back to Caleb that she couldn't express what exactly was going on. She couldn't express to anybody what was going on. And that's such a reality for a lot of people. They're so afraid of the abuser that they can't tell anybody because they're so afraid of the punishment that will come if the abuser finds out that they told somebody. It's like a vicious cycle that you just can't get out of, and one that hits so close to home. That's why I gave the warning that I did in the beginning of this video, because it is such a trigger for a lot of people, and in a lot of ways it was a trigger for me, and it wasn't the kind of book that I was expecting, but it was such a good book, and it was told in such a way that it just made me appreciate the author's ability to explain it so eloquently. I don't want to give too much away because I really want you to go read the book. I could talk about this book all day long and give you every detail of it, and it'd still not be enough unless you actually read the author's words on the page. Okay guys, I went ahead and just put the rest of my makeup on today. I was having some issues with allergies, and my eyes are watering so bad today. It made it really difficult to do my makeup, so that was keeping me distracted from being able to talk about the book. And I really want to tell y'all about the book because that's what the most important part of this video is today, not the makeup. Having said all that I have said about the book, it really is a different kind of romance novel than I've ever read before. I mean, some romance novels that I've read have touched upon the themes that this one did, but not in the way that this author did. And I just think that she did a really good job of portraying the authenticity of what a situation like that really looks like. The struggle that Iris went through in the story, she was such a strong and feisty female in the beginning of the story, and no matter how strong somebody is, how they can become so enveloped by, abuse and what it does to their character, what it does to their sense of, self. It just goes to show you that, no matter how strong you are, sometimes abuse can really change your mindset, and it can almost make you forget about who you used to be. It can almost make you forget about who you truly are. You become complacent, you become used to the treatment, you learn how to deal with it the best that you can in order to survive. It was heartbreaking to see the adversity that August and Iris faced in the story, but it was also very empowering to see them get through it the best that they can. And I really think August's character is unlike a lot of typical male characters in romance novels because he was extremely likable. A lot of times in romance novels, the male lead is kind of a jerk, but August really seems like an all-around good guy. August and Iris were just destined to find each other. They were going to get through anything that they had to be together. And I really enjoyed reading it, and I highly recommend the book. It's not something I expected. I didn't do any research before I read it, but I'm so glad that I didn't, because sometimes people are quick to judge a book by its cover. You know, you may have in your mind that you don't like a specific thing, and so you don't want to try it and you miss out. And I would have really missed out. If I wouldn't have read this book, I truly would have missed out, and I'm so glad that I did. So, you know, I definitely recommend this book. I give it an amazing 2 thumbs up. Whether you like romance novels or not, you know, it does have some smut in there. Some of the scenes that the author described when, you know, the abuse occurred was very difficult to read. I want to do another video about me, kind of giving you a little background about why I'm so passionate about books, why this is something that I chose to include on my channel, and maybe it can give you a better understanding and appreciation for, you know, why I would recommend certain books to you. So I am going to do another video on another book that I'm going to recommend. I am going to try and do 1 book a week. I don't know if that's going to be doable, but I'm really going to try. And a lot of that would depend on if you give me some suggestions on what to read. I've read so many books, sometimes I feel like I've read them all. I know I haven't, but the more suggestions you give me, the more videos I can make. So thank you for watching this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I appreciate your time. I hope that if you do decide to go out and purchase this book, that you also love it as much as I did. I think you will. I don't think that there's anything not to like about this book. It is available on Amazon. On Kindle it's $4.99, and on paperback it's $14.99 on Amazon. Definitely check it out, and I will be back in my next video with either some more makeup or some more book suggestions. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.